Hello there, everyone. Welcome. I can see some people starting to pile in this evening. So welcome along to our information session. I'm just having a few very minor tech issues that I'm just going to do a few clicks and that will hopefully resolve it. Wonderful. So welcome to our information session about foster care this evening. It's so lovely to have you here. As we just give everyone a few minutes grace to sign in, as we all know, tech issues can strike at the best of times. I would encourage you to please access the chat box and just let us know which suburb you're zooming in from this evening. I'm here in Ascot Vale in Melbourne. Everyone should be zooming in from Melbourne or thereabouts, but please, if you can, your chat box might be up the top there, and it's a little sort of chat box icon, speech bubble icon. I can see Megan is here from McKinnon. Welcome, Megan. I've got Erica from Ardia. Wonderful. I've got Andrew from Tarneet. Tarneet or Tarney, I never know how to pronounce that suburb. It will haunt me till the day I die. I've never learned and I possibly never will. So already there, we've got some people coming from all around Melbourne, which is wonderful. I've got Claire from Balnarring Beach, terrific. So we've got some coastal, we've got some inland, we've got some west, we've got some east, which is always really good to see because we do need foster carers all across Melbourne. If you're just joining us, please do use the chat box function just to let us know which suburb you are zooming in from this evening. And welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us. Just while we let everyone pile in, I will just introduce myself. My name's Hannah and I am the carer practice manager here in the foster care team at Life Without Barriers across Melbourne. And I'm here to talk to you this evening about foster care. So hopefully that's the reason you're here. You're in the right room if that's the case. I will let my trusty sidekick Louise introduce herself as well. If you want to say hi, Lou.
Oh, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight for our information session. I just wanted to say, obviously, I'm Louise. I'm the Care Engagement Officer. With your inquiry tonight, then I'll be the person that can chat with you about that. I just want to recap as well. As Hannah's doing her beautiful presentation, ask away with your questions. Just start to type them in the chat box. There's no silly questions. In fact, we may even introduce a prize for the most asked questions. What do you think, Hannah?
Yeah, absolutely. We do get some very frequently asked questions, don't we? And we really are used to questions. No question is too big or too small. I think that's the key message, isn't it, Lou? Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wonderful.
So there you go. Enjoy this evening. Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Lou. So you'll be hearing a bit of my voice this evening, everyone, and I would like to apologise in advance for that because if you've ever heard yourself recorded, you'll understand it's a bit atrocious. But nevertheless, we will push on. So we're here to talk about foster care, but before I jump in and hopefully give you lots of information that will help you decide if making an application to be a foster carer is something that you're interested in doing, I would just like to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land that we're all meeting on today. And as we just saw, we're all in different suburbs, so we may have different traditional custodians represented there. Regardless of who they are, I would like to pay my respect to their elders, past and present, as well as to emerging leaders in those areas as well. I extend my appreciation to their cultural heritage, beliefs, and spiritual connection with this land. And I acknowledge my gratitude that we share this land today, my sorrow for some of the costs of that sharing, and my hope and belief that we can move to a place of equity, justice, and partnership together. So let's look at a little bit of a roadmap of where we're going to go this evening and what we're going to talk about. Obviously, lots of all things foster care, but what specifically? Firstly, it's important that you understand a little bit about the organisation for which Louise and I work, Life Without Barriers. We'll talk about foster care, which is handy at a foster care information session, isn't it? We'll talk about children in care and some of their stories. So hopefully you can start to bring to life some of the ideas about foster care. We'll talk about becoming a carer and the process that's actually involved because we get questions all the time about what exactly that looks like. And as we were saying before, we'll then move through some frequently asked questions or common questions, which Louise and I hear all the time in our jobs. But it doesn't have to end there. At the very end of this presentation tonight, what we will do is come back to the chat box to answer your questions. So please don't sit on them. As we said, there's no question too great or small. Please pop in anything you're curious about or would like more information about, or any specific questions you have, and we will come back to those questions in the chat box at the end. So that's what we'll do this evening together. So firstly, Life Without Barriers, which is, again, the organisation that we're here representing and that we work for. Our motto is that we partner with people to change lives for the better. Now, we're a great big national organisation and we support tens of thousands of people all across Australia. We have services across a range of areas. Obviously, tonight we're talking foster care, so that's within the children, youth and families area. We also work with people with disabilities, with refugees and asylum seekers, with people in aged care, with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. We really do the whole spectrum of social services across the country. So we're a great big organisation, very committed to standing up for social issues and making positive change. In terms of our values, we kind of live by these. This is what guides our day-to-day work. We build relationships. We're imaginative, respectful, responsive, and courageous. And courageous is very relevant for Lou and I, who both are terrified of public speaking, but here we are this evening with you fine people. So what is foster care? That's obviously a really important thing for you to understand if you are considering becoming a foster carer. So it is time away from a child's biological family to allow the child to heal and grow. Sometimes foster care might be for one night, it might be for 1 week, it might be for a month, a year, or it might be right the way through until a child, whatever age they are, turns 18 in a year's time. Sometimes people use different words for foster care, like out-of-home care or family-based care, but basically they all are the same thing. And as you can see there, that is sometimes a statistic that can stagger people a little bit. On any given night around Australia, there are around 50,000 children who are unable to live safely at home. And for that reason, we always need good quality foster carers. So why do children come into care, I think, is a really important thing for people to understand. And it's probably the thing people are most curious about when they come into the space of foster care. Some of the common reasons, and again, this isn't an exhaustive list, but it's just some of the common ones that we do see are on your screen there. So that's around abuse, be that physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, neglect. And what we mean by that is that a child hasn't been given the attention and guidance and supervision that they need to grow, to be age appropriately developed. There might be some significant issues going on for parents, like mental health conditions, or perhaps parents have actually passed away unexpectedly and there actually isn't anyone to care for the child right now. There may be significant complexities within the child. So perhaps they live with disability or significant behavioural challenges, and the family doesn't actually have the capacity to manage those needs for the child right now. And so we find them a safe place to live with a foster family for the time being. Again, that's not an exhaustive list. That's just some of the common reasons that we do see children coming into care. So who are these kids? One of them was the lovely Kieran here on the right-hand side. Now, Kieran, as you can see, is now grown up. He has a full-time job. He's looking forward to buying a house in the future, aren't we all, Kieran? And he came into foster care when he was 12 years old and remembers that his foster carer has played a really big part in who he is today. So that's just one of many lovely stories of clients that have now grown up in the Life Without Barriers foster care program. A little bit about children in care. They can be any age from 0 to 17, and I mean literally any age on that spectrum. They might be literally 1 day old, just born, right through to 17 and a half years old and just wanting to finish off their final year of school, for example. They should stay connected to their culture and identity. We know that those things are incredibly important for children to thrive, even if they're not able to live with their family right now. They all have biological families who are important to them, and we have to acknowledge and respect those biological families at all times. And importantly, children in care have all suffered trauma of some sort, just being removed from their family of birth is incredibly traumatic for children. And add that to the list of things we just spoke about that they may have been through in that home environment. So children in care are carrying around some pretty heavy stuff with them, and it's important that carers are ready to help them through that. The key message, though, the most important thing I'd like you to take away from tonight, if anything, is this sentence down the bottom. Kids in care are just kids. They're just ordinary kids. They didn't ask for any of this stuff to happen to them. And I think it's really important that we always keep that in mind. And that's why we need to be here to help them. So are there different types of foster care? There absolutely are. So I'll just run you quickly through the different types of foster care we have here in Victoria. You can see there respite care is usually planned in advance. It might be for a weekend, or it might be for, up to 7 days during the school holidays, for example. It provides full-time foster carers with a break. So maybe, they have a long-term placement in with them, but they're going to a wedding this weekend now that they're back on, hooray, and they can't take the child with them. They need somewhere safe and appropriate for the child to be able to go, so they might access a respite care placement. So that's kind of how respite functions. Give carers a break, but it also gives children an opportunity to go and see a different house and try some different food, and ultimately learn that there are lots of adults in their life that care about them, which is great. You can see on the right there, emergency care, almost the exact opposite to respite care. It is typically not planned in advance because it is an emergency. It's where children need somewhere safe to stay immediately. There's an urgent need for their safety. Sometimes emergency care placements are made at 3 in the morning. Sometimes they're made at 3 in the afternoon, and of course, any hour in between those times as well. So emergency carers have to have a pretty good level of flexibility. And emergency care can be anything from 1 night right up to 4 weeks at a time as well. Then down the bottom here, we've got short-term care, which is anything up to 6 months at a time. Sounds like a long time, but in foster care terms, that means short-term. Sometimes short-term care is what we might use while a child's family resolves some issues at home, so that we can keep the child safe with a foster family and then reunify them back to mum and dad when things are safe. It might be needed, though, while we figure out a longer-term plan for the child as well. And like all of our care types, it really needs to feel safe and be focused on a feeling of stability for the child. If we look then at long-term care, that's anything from 6 months and above. So it might be 6 months, it might be a year, it might be right through until the child reaches 18 years of age. We need a commitment to supporting children towards adulthood, and we need a focus on stability for children in long-term care. We really want them to feel included in that family and stable with that family. An important thing to note, though, is that long-term does not necessarily mean forever. So sometimes children might be with you for a number of years, but then they may still go back to their family of origin as well. And that's really important for you to be aware of. So that's some of the care types that we have in Victoria. So Life Without Barriers has an evidence-informed approach to foster care that was developed by Cornell University. It's a really easy model to remember the name of because it's called CARE. Wonderful. So CARE, creating conditions for change, is underpinned really by these 6 principles that you can see on your screen, and each one has a little pink picture, which I will put up. Effectively, though, what we're really focusing on in care is putting emphasis on foster carers being appropriate role models who really take the responsibility to look after these children, help them to heal and grow, and develop the skills that they need to be functioning, happy members of society as children and also as adults. So really focusing on helping them develop those skills that they need. That's basically what these 6 principles speak to. Now, if we look at the important role of a foster carer, we've just got a couple of little stories up on the screen here. We need carers with attributes and beliefs that we know are good for children. And each of these stories and many, many more is up on our foster care website at Life Without Barriers, which I do really encourage you to go and have a look at. Some of the stories are really wonderful. And they just bring to life who we're actually looking for in foster carers and what are the important things they need to have. So just a little snippet of some of these stories is Stacey on the left here, who again isn't a carer, but she did grow up in foster care. And she is studying at university. She wants to be a social worker. And she talks about how important it was that her foster care family made her feel included and part of that family, which is a really lovely key message. There's also Chris and Sofiane in the middle here, who provide long-term care for 0 to 5-year-olds. And they wanted to make a child the priority in their life, but they didn't actually think that it was possible for them at their age and stage of life. And then they discovered that they could be foster carers, which is wonderful. And then we've got the beautiful Gwen over on the right there, who provides long-term care for 12 to 18-year-olds. She's obviously had lots of practice because she's got 7 grandchildren, and she provides care to 2 teenage foster siblings for the last 6 years, which is wonderful. And that's something I encourage you to consider as well. Do you have the space in your heart and your home to keep some siblings together? Because they aren't always able to continue living together unless we have carers who are able to facilitate that, of course. So that's just some of the stories, and I'll share the website at the end with you so you can go and have a look at more of them as well. So what are we actually looking for in carers? This is something that people are very curious about. There's a list there on your screen. Obviously, again, not an exhaustive list, but a pretty good indication. We need people who have time, availability and flexibility to spend time with children. One positive out of COVID and all of the lockdowns we've been experiencing is that lots of people who work full-time now do so from home, or they have flexible working arrangements. And that's great news for foster care, because it means maybe they're now available to do things like school pickup, and now providing full-time care is a possibility for them. So that's been a wonderful kind of silver lining out of COVID. We do need carers who want to help children stay connected with their families and eventually return safely to them if that is possible. We want carers, of course, who believe in children and who believe children will do well if they get good help and care and support. We need carers who have the capacity to share their home and resources with children who need help, who have a curious mind and like trying to understand why children do the things that they do, and also to help them manage really big feelings that these kids are often carrying around with them as well, like missing their biological family. And we need carers who believe it's important that children feel included in the carer family, so that they're made to feel a part of that family, even though they're in foster care. Little pink list there, which basically reiterates some of those same points again. So those are just some of the things that we're looking for in what we know make great carers. So who can be a carer? Hopefully by the end of this presentation this evening, you might have a clearer picture that it can be you. Carers can be partnered, single, they can be parents, they can be non-parents, they can be from any background or culture. Really what we're interested in is your capacity and ability to care for and nurture a child. That's absolutely our number one. There's a few eligibility criteria we do need you to satisfy though. So as you can see, we need you to be over 21. We need you to have relevant life experience. And I suppose what we mean by that is you need to have met children and interacted with them and have a baseline understanding of the things that children need. We need you to be well and healthy, because it's a very demanding job caring for children. You do need to have a regular source of income or be financially stable. You can be from any culture, faith, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, gender identity or expression. That's totally fine. You might be single. You might be in a relationship, that's fine too. You do need to be willing to undergo background checks. And what I mean by that is things like police checks, working with children checks, some really great baseline ways that we can make sure that we're only accrediting safe and suitable people to be foster carers. And just on the right there about your home and family, you might have your own children or not. That's again, totally fine. You might rent a house, or you might own your own home. Again, completely fine. You do need to have a spare room in your home. You do need to have a car and a license so that you can transport children to and fro to the many appointments they must attend. And everyone in your household needs to be an active and willing participant in the assessment and foster caring process, because it makes pretty significant changes to your household to become a carer. So we need to know that everyone's on board. So that's a little bit about who can be a carer. So what does that look like? How do I become one of these carers you keep talking about? this is a bit of a nutshell approach to what the process looks like. So firstly, you'll chat with us. It'll be a more two-way chat than tonight. You'll hear less of my voice and more of your own. We kind of chat with you about some information about fostering. We answer lots of your questions. And then we basically take you through an initial phone interview and really unpack whether fostering is right for you and your family right now. Timing is really important in foster care. So sometimes we might say, how about you leave it a little while? Sometimes we might say, woohoo, you're ready, let's do it. So it just depends. Then you'll have a home visit. Now, sometimes that will be in your home, sometimes that will be on Zoom, just depends. And then we'll talk you through making an application. We'll get started on all your background checks for yourself as an applicant and any household members that you have. And then we walk you through some training. It's wonderful training that occurs over a couple of weeks. And we really give you a sense of what it is that we're needing from carers and the expectations, the things you can look forward to in being a carer. It's really great training. I must say that genuinely it's really enjoyable watching participants go through it, and you can see the pennies dropping for them throughout those sessions. If you decide after all of that, yes, I still think this is a good idea and I would like to proceed to an assessment, we then meet with yourself and your family for a series of interviews where we really unpack things to the nth degree and explore your capacity to provide care for children in foster care. And I'll talk a little bit about more about the assessment process shortly. Basically, if you take all of those steps and all goes well, you will then be taken to what we call an approval panel, which is where we sit down with the Department of Child Protection and talk about what a wonderful family you are and how great you're going to be as carers. And they say, oh, that sounds lovely. And we all give you the tick of approval on the day and you become a foster carer. And that's when you access support and training from our team. So that's what it looks like in a nutshell. I'll move now to talking through some of the frequently asked questions that Lou and I do hear all the time from people. And then I will come to the chat box after these ones as well. So some questions about you. I'm single, can I foster? Yes, you can. About 50% actually across Australia of our foster carers are single people. So it's a really significant representation there. So you can absolutely foster if you're single. The same for same-sex couples. Unfortunately, there's still a myth in the community that some people still are under the impression is true that same-sex couples cannot foster. It's absolutely untrue. And at Life Without Barriers, we really value diversity and we need diverse carers to reflect the needs of the diverse children that we have in care as well. So you absolutely can foster. The same below. If you don't have your own children, you can absolutely still be a foster carer. We definitely would like to see, again, that you do have some experience interacting with children, and we can work through that in the assessment just to make sure that we have a good baseline level of knowledge and skill from you. Some questions about your home. Do I need to have spare room? It's a simple question and it's a simple answer. Yes, you do. It helps children feel that they have somewhere that's theirs and that they belong, and that there's somewhere safe for them to retreat if they get a bit overwhelmed in your home. Do I have to own my own home to be a foster carer? Luckily, no, because the way things are going in Melbourne at the moment, we'd run out of foster carers very quickly if that was the case. All we need to be able to demonstrate, no matter your living situation, is that your premises are safe and suitable to foster. So you might be renting, you might be in public housing, paying off your own home, own your home outright. All of those are absolutely fine, just so long as it's a safe and suitable environment for a child. About your family, can I have my own children and foster other children? Absolutely, you can. In the assessment process that we go through with you and your family, we consider all of the needs of everyone in the household when we make decisions about which children we may or may not place with you. Our general rule of thumb is that we place children who are younger than your youngest child. So what I mean by that is if your youngest child is 7 years old, we don't show up at the front door with 16-year-old triplets and throw them in there. That would probably not be a very good idea. We try and place children who are younger than your youngest child. Will all my family be involved in the assessment process? That is a resounding yes. Everyone in your household is part of the assessment process. And it's really important that everyone knows what fostering is and, what are the changes that are going to happen to the household as a result of being a fostering family, and is on board with that decision to apply as well. So it can be a really good idea to start having those conversations early. So about the child in care, how are children matched to foster carers? It's pleasing that we do have a matching process. We don't just throw anyone anywhere. Basically, what happens is we work through this very rigorous, very thorough assessment process with you and your family, and then we get sent a referral about a child who needs a placement, and we look at all of the information we have about the child, all of the information that we have about you and your family and the other available families we have. And from that, we make a decision about what's the most compatible match. So we don't just sort of throw kids in willy-nilly. We do try and make sure it's got a good chance of success. Can I choose the age and gender of the child? We will always work with you about your preferences and recommend the best fit for your household, considering your skills, what you're comfortable with, your household dynamics. Some people come to us and they don't really mind about age or gender. They're very open about that. Other people come and they're quite specific, maybe based on their own parenting experiences or life experiences. We'll always take your preferences into consideration, but it's really important to keep in mind that if you have very, very specific, rigid preferences, that can make it really hard for us. So if you're coming in and saying, I can only care for children who are aged between 3 and 3.5, and they have to be boys and they have to be blonde and they have to have blue eyes, that starts to get a little bit impossible for us in the end. So we do ask for just a degree of flexibility and to trust us in the recommendations that we're making for the children who might be a good fit for you as well. A little bit more about the child in care. This one sometimes really surprises people. Do children in care have ongoing relationships with their family? Yes, they do, in almost all cases, unless it's absolutely not safe or not appropriate. And the reason for that is we know that it's really good for kids. Maintaining that connection with family ensures good long-term outcomes for them. But don't worry, you won't be left to manage all of that on your own. Our care teams manage most of the family visits and family contact arrangements, and safety is always our number one priority for the kids, for yourselves, for the families. So that's how we kind of approach that. And this is, sometimes people are anxious about what might happen if a placement doesn't go well or isn't working out. So obviously, if a placement's not going well, we don't want to just end it and move children around willy-nilly, because what happens if we do that is that children start to develop an idea that there's something wrong with them, and that's why things keep going wrong. We do really need a level of resilience from carers to try and keep placements going and to work through challenges. But at the end of the day, if a placement is really going disastrously, it's not good for you, it's not good for your family or for the child, then of course we will be there for you, we'll be there for your family and for the child, and we'll seek the best possible outcome for everyone involved. How long does the assessment process take is a natural question after I've just talked so much about how thorough it is. Assessment is obviously a really important step for us as an agency to make sure we're only accrediting safe and suitable people and making really good recommendations about who we might place with you. It's also really important for you as applicants to have all your questions answered and feel really solid about what it is that you're actually about to step into. And for that reason, it can often take about 5 to 6 months. And that is, if you were to tonight say, this sounds like a good idea, I'm going to put in an inquiry, you might start the journey officially tonight. And it could be that in around 5 to 6 months' time, if everything goes well and there's no major barriers, that you might find yourself accredited as a foster carer. I will make the point there that fostering is all about timing, and I really genuinely mean that. Many people who place their application at any given time don't take all of the steps then and there. They might need to stop and start because life happens, and that's okay. We'll always work with you around what's good timing and good decisions for you and your family. And what support will you receive as a foster carer? Really important for you to know that you're never alone. We don't just sort of say, well done, you're accredited, and never speak to you again. We are there for you every step of the way, supporting you with any placements that we do make with you. It's a really challenging role being a carer because it's hard to comprehend what children have gone through and the way that they then behave based on their experiences. So we know that the very best carers are the ones who feel the most supported and the most confident in their role. So it's really important to us that you're supported. We encourage carers to form supportive peer relationships with one another. And we also offer what you can sort of see on your screen here. So ongoing training so that you can continue to develop your skills and your confidence, specialist support from people like clinicians who can provide you advice on how to manage tough situations. We have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week on-call support line. So if things are not going well at any time of the day or night, that's okay. You can call a number and there will be a person on the end of that phone ready to support you. You have access to respite if you're providing full-time care types. You do get some financial support. I will call out there that you're not going to be a millionaire if you are a carer. The financial support you receive is to support the needs of the child in your care, but it is not an income, so to speak. And you do also get access to carer networking events and opportunities, which is really positive as well. So I've talked so much, but I can imagine that nonetheless there are lots of questions that you've had throughout the presentation. So I will just throw over to my trusty sidekick, Lou. Any questions in the inbox there, Lou?
Yeah, okay, let's start off with this one, Hannah. I have previously worked for the DHS as a residential support worker. Are the foster children you take care of coming from the extreme situations as some of those under state care with the DHS?
Yes, absolutely. So residential care is a type of out-of-home care. For those who aren't aware, it's kind of like a group home situation, and often very complex children end up in residential care. Some very complex children end up in foster care as well. I would say we have a few more of the more general needs children at that end of the spectrum in foster care, but absolutely some complexities can present in foster care as well, and you will be supported as a carer to manage those situations as they arise as well. I hope that answers your question enough.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, any other questions, folks? We're all quiet tonight, Hannah.
I will just go back as my cogs have turned a little bit there. The person who's asking that question, I would just like to make the note that if you've worked in residential care before, you probably have some wonderful skills and experience and knowledge to be able to help children in foster care. So we'd be very interested in talking to you about the kinds of care that you'd like to provide. Just to go back and make that clear, there's lots of different professions out there, you know, people who work with children or work in health services and things like that, who have lots of wisdom that we would absolutely love to tap into and can be very helpful for children. You would be surprised at the transferable skills that people bring with them from different jobs into being foster carers.
Excellent.
Any other questions, Lou?
I'm in my early 60s. Am I too old to be a foster carer?
Oh, age is but a number. We hear that all the time. And you know what? I think there's something to be said. It's always people in their early 60s asking this question, isn't it? I've met some people in their early 60s who are younger and more sprightly at heart than me. So absolutely, you're not too old to be a foster carer if you are in your 60s. We look on a case-by-case basis. All we need to see is that you are well and healthy and stable and able to provide that nurturing care for children. So absolutely, age is but a number in foster care, and you are more than welcome to submit an application if that's your age.
Absolutely. Do both partners in the household need to have a driver's license?
Oh, great question. No, both partners don't need to. We just need to ensure that at least one person in the household has a driver's license and that the household has access to a car. It's basically to make your life a little bit easier as well, because children do have lots of different appointments and commitments, so that you can get them to and fro easily.
Excellent. Okay.
Any other questions, Lou? Oh, sorry, you go.
That's okay, sorry. Someone was just walking past me as I went out, so I lost my train of thought. We have a very large but very friendly dog. Is that okay?
Yes, that's okay. We are a team of dog lovers. We love very large, very friendly dogs. I love that you said very friendly. If it was a very large, very aggressive dog, I might have a different response. But something that's really wonderful about foster care is that it opens up opportunities that children might not otherwise have. And that includes things as little as having a pet in their home. They might never have had that before. So if you have a lovely dog or cat or bird that's able to get along with and be safe with children, that's a wonderful thing that you can offer a child. And perhaps, I've seen kids come in and really love the responsibility of feeding the pet, and that's their special job that they do, and that can be a really wonderful way for them to develop some independence and confidence as well. So definitely you can still apply.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to scream from the rooftops with this one, say yes you can. My partner and I are in a same-sex relationship. Will we really be considered as suitable?
Yes, you will. Absolutely, you will. And people who are in same-sex relationships are treated exactly the same way as those in heteronormative relationships. We genuinely don't see that there's a difference, because what we are focused on, again, is are you in a healthy relationship together, and do you have a stable home environment to offer a child and young person in need? That is literally all we're interested in, and whatever your sexuality or marital status or any of those things really are secondary to that. They're just not as important as what you can offer a child. So that's our focus.
Excellent. How does schooling work for these children? I'm thinking about locations and needs, etc.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is that we hope children are enrolled in a school and attending a school full time. And the expectation is that they will continue to do that when they're placed with you. We try to place children as close as possible to their school. So, we don't want you to be in a situation where the child's school is an hour and a half from your home. That just wouldn't be feasible or realistic. So we don't do it, except perhaps for, emergency placements for 2 nights only or something like that. We will always try and maintain the child at school. What you have to remember for kids in care is that sometimes they have so much change and movement in their life. School might be the one consistent thing for them that they've had in their life, the one safe, consistent place. So what we don't want to do is move a child's school just because they've moved placement. We would tend to, for a long-term placement, we might consider doing that, but we would need to see that it's a stable placement first. So it can be that there's a little bit of a drive to and from school each day, but you will have some support with that as well.
Excellent. Okay, can we request siblings? We have 2 spare rooms and would really want to keep brothers and sisters together if we can.
Yes, you can absolutely request siblings. And even if you only had 1 spare room, on some occasions it is approved for siblings to share a room. Sometimes they can't, but sometimes they can. So siblings is actually an option for more people than you might think. But if you have space in your heart and in your home, and you're interested in providing care for siblings, that is absolutely music to our ears, isn't it, Lou? Because we love keeping families together and keeping siblings together. It can help them to feel much safer in their placement. So absolutely.
Wonderful. I haven't had much experience with kids, but think I'd be great with teenagers. Are there teenagers needing homes?
Yes, there are so many teenagers needing homes, and people have this view of teenagers that they're scary and hormonal, and sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. They're just kids, and again, they need support and help, just like the cute little 2- and 4-year-olds that come into the system. So we absolutely love hearing from people who want to care for teenagers. It's a huge area of need, and we would love to work with you if that's something you're interested in.
Absolutely. Can children in our care call us mum and dad, or is that discouraged?
Oh, can children call the carers mum and dad? That's a great question, and it's kind of hard to answer, to be honest, because Sometimes, yes, the kids want to call you mum and dad, and that's something that they're really passionate about, and it makes them feel a bit more normal because other kids at their school live with people they call mum and dad, so that might be something that they do. We have some foster carers who, you know, their name might be Louise, so they're called Mum Louise, and then they have their biological mum as well that they call mum. We have some kids that call their biological mum their tummy mummy, and then they have their foster mummy as well. So some kids who maybe are a little bit older like to refer to their foster carers as their auntie and uncle or things like that. So it really is very individual, and we try and be child-led in those conversations. Certainly, we wouldn't want you to be saying to a child on their first day in your home, you have to call me mum, because that's obviously going to be really strange for them. We just try and move at the child's pace and work with them through that.
Of course. Okay, children with disabilities. Do we need special qualifications to care for them, and will we be trained?
Oh, that's a great question. You do not need any special qualifications to care for children with disabilities. You will absolutely receive training and specialised support if that's something that you have agreed to take on. Lots of children in foster care do come with additional needs, and so it's really important that we support foster carers to have the knowledge and skills they need to meet those children's needs and support them appropriately. So if that's something you're willing to do, we will absolutely work with you to make sure you have the knowledge and information and training that you need to feel really confident about it.
Excellent. And lucky last question. Mm-hmm. If we're full-time carers, can we use babysitters? So if we were going out for the night, could we use our own babysitters?
You absolutely can. And that can be something that's really lovely for a child, because they feel, you know, it's a normalizing thing for them, because other kids at their school probably just have a babysitter come and watch them for the night as well. The only thing we would just need to be mindful of is we need to do some probity checks on that babysitter to make sure that they are a safe and suitable person. And the agency, Life Without Barriers, will work with you to make sure that that is a really easy and straightforward process. So absolutely, you can use babysitters. Wonderful. No more questions there, Lou?
Two more just dropped in 1 second.
Oh, yep.
We don't have a spare room, so sharing the bedroom with our other child, 7-year-old boy, would that be acceptable?
Or as in, could a foster child share the room with their biological child? Okay, really good and important question. And unfortunately, the answer is no. We aren't able to approve children in care sharing a bedroom with unrelated children. It's only, you know, circumstances where siblings might be approved to share a room. We aren't able to approve children staying in a room with an unrelated child. So for yourselves, it might not be the right time to place a fostering application right now. Maybe down the track, you might move to a different home or different accommodation and have more space. And we can absolutely keep in touch with you until then, and then work with you on making an application at that time.
Absolutely. Okay. For children who've been traumatised, will we have access to psychologists or psychiatrists or other counselling type of support?
Yes, you absolutely will, for you, yourselves, and for the child as well. So there's what's called a care team that's built around every child that might have a psychologist or a clinician or someone like that in there. Every child has a case manager. An agency case manager, so someone from Life Without Barriers who works with them. So the child will absolutely be receiving that support. You as a carer will sometimes need that support as well. So you'll have access to our free confidential counselling service through Life Without Barriers, and you will also have access to regular debriefs and sessions with the case manager that's allocated to your home as well, to make sure that you are actually okay and that your wellbeing is being taken care of. Because what we know is carers who feel really good provide really good care to kids. So that's what we need to make sure we're doing. Great question.
Can we take a foster child on holiday with us, with our own children?
Yes, you would have heard me just get really excited. Yes, you definitely can. There's a few little things we need to get done first. We need to get approval, often from Child Protection, in order for you to do that. Sometimes if you're thinking of, you know, going overseas or interstate, that approval might take a little while to come through. So if you're organised and let us know that that's what you're wanting to do, absolutely, it's wonderful when children in care have the opportunity to go with their foster family on holidays. So that's something we would be advocating for and supporting you to do.
I have one more. Is it okay if my spare room is also my home office? I suppose it depends whether it's got a door on, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it does still need to be a bedroom that's a space for that child. So that's probably one I can't really answer without knowing exactly the circumstances of how often you use that office and what care types you'd be applying for and all those sorts of things. It's a possibility. It's something we'd just probably want to talk with you about in more detail just to make sure we've got all the details right. Yeah.
And someone, no, that's it. All done now. All done, Hannah. All done.
Fabulous. Wonderful. Some really great questions there. Thank you so much, everyone. What I'll do now is just move us along to looking at where you might go from here. So hopefully you've got some great baseline information for yourselves this evening, and you might be feeling a little bit more clear about whether you'd like to take the next step and have another conversation with us. Our website, lifewithoutbarriers.org.au, as you can see on the screen there, is a great wealth of information, and it does have our foster carer stories there as well. So I do encourage you to go and have a look at them. If you would just like to jump straight in and have a chat with one of our foster care specialists, you can contact our team on the phone number or email address that's written on the screen there, or you can fill in what's called a call me back form. And Lou is just going to pop that link in the chat box for you. You can just click on that form. It literally takes 30 seconds tops to fill in the details, and then one of our team will actually give you a phone call. So feel free to use that link. If you're thinking, you know, I'm interested, but I'm not quite ready yet, you are welcome to join our mailing list. And what happens then is you receive regular, not spammy, not everyday emails. It's a nice sort of regular, but not too regular stream of, we might send out new research, videos, different fact sheets, just so that you can stay engaged in the process and learn more about fostering without the pressure of having to make an application right now. So there's a number of options available for you there, and I encourage you to have a think about where you're at right now and what you'd like to do. If you go to lwb.org.au, all of the details on screen are really visible there as well, where you can place an inquiry. So that's some of the ways to continue the conversation with us. I will finish there for this evening. So I would really like to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. It's a huge pleasure and privilege of ours to speak with people from all walks of life about becoming foster carers. And it's a commitment that you've made, even coming along tonight to find out a bit more. And we don't take that for granted. So thank you very much. We will finish it there, and we do hope to speak with you again in the very near future. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, guys.